this session is really going to focus on press releases, but on marketing content in general as well. And one of the things that I was thinking about at the beginning of 2023 was what types of marketing content do people find most useful? And it might be good just to, if I could ask you, Larry,
Yeah.
what do you regard as the most powerful sort of marketing content rather than sales content? Marketing content that you might see for, say, a supplier or a company, a partner that you might consider working with. What sorts of things are you looking for when you possibly when you're in your website, or when something is sent to you on email?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for something that resonates with issues that I'm trying to resolve at the moment. So
Yes.
I'm looking for a message really that where I look at it and recognize myself as being in that position, or will shortly be in that position, because obviously when you're running the business, you're not just worrying about the here and now, you're worrying about the next 2 to 3 months. So if I see something, and obviously it's better to do it in advance anyway, so if I see something that I know is a task or a challenge that I'm facing now, or that I'm going to face shortly, that's what would talk to me straight away.
Fantastic. So it's a sort of pain point orientated.
So there's I think there's two things. That there's a tactical thing, which is a pain point. Yeah, definitely,
yeah.
And obviously that's what people try and touch on. And then I think there's a strategic element to it as well. So for example, I'll give you an example. I'm interested in AI. I don't think I've got an immediate use for it, but actually, when something comes up and someone says, "Oh, learn about ChatGPT," and I think, "Oh yeah, I'll go and look at that," they're actually showing me how they use it in conjunction with their product, but I can actually see it might help me with the pain I've got now. I just didn't know at the time, but I knew strategically I should be looking at it. Yes. So sometimes it's a strategic message as well.
That's very, very interesting, because what that says to me is companies need to be talking about the topics or the issues which lead through to their solution, as well as about their solution itself.
Yes.
Which dovetails almost precisely with a lot of the work that I do with clients, which is what I loosely call thought leadership. Essentially, what it's helping particularly tech firms to do is to navigate the touch point issues, which are driving change, but could also potentially drive a decision to purchase their solution. Well, I'll sketch out very quickly and now sort of just explain who I am, what my background is. So basically, I work for something like 30 years within the B2B tech world. So essentially working with businesses particularly through the dot-com period, that were looking either to float, or they were looking basically to be acquired in short order. So it was in that frenzied period from about 98 through to 2001, when we saw the beginning of the correction in the tech world. And then I went off in 2003 and set up Agility PR. So Agility PR is now very nearly 20 years old. And I've probably worked in that time with about 20 to 30 different tech firms. Normally they're small to medium-sized businesses. Some of them have gone on and been acquired for tens of millions of pounds. Others have enjoyed sort of steady growth between 10 and 20% in the tech world. And then so over that period, I've also sort of recognized that the world has changed with digital marketing. So we launched social media marketing capabilities, blog posting services, etc. So basically acknowledging that a good deal of the communication that businesses were doing was going to be via their website and via social channels, as well as via traditional direct marketing, which is obviously depleted, and media relations. So some of this discussion sort of feeds into that whole, the digital mix that we now have, and how that can actually create a little bit of confusion about the type of content that we need to create. And it leads me straight to the first question, the first real question, which is, what's the value of securing media coverage today? In a digital world, do we still need media coverage, and do companies value that? Good. Well, I mean, I've summarised a few that came top of mind to me, which definitely touch on what you've said. I think that authoritative third-party endorsement.
Yeah.
So it's almost like saying, well, somebody who follows the market, my market, is saying, this is a company to watch, or this is a company to listen to, or they've got something interesting to say in that market. Gives you that instant credibility. So you're suddenly a source that's of value because you've been given a big tick by one of your top 5 magazines that are being read by the industry you're serving. So it's definitely powerful. I think from a digital perspective, it's also powerful, and we'll talk a bit about how to present press releases, for example. But obviously the potential for backlinks is what a lot of companies that are quite digital marketing savvy, what they'll often do is, instead of posting their press releases up on their website, for example, what they'll actually do is a very brief summary of the story, and then they'll provide the links through to the coverage of that story. So they're much more interested in the authoritative backlinks than they are in the story itself. As a bit of a purist, I think you should be doing both, to be honest. I think you should be showing the links, but you should also be showing all the entire press release. But so that's an interesting debate.
I mean, the thing that I find frustrating about links to other things is when they're behind firewalls and things like that, because often I mean, I know paywalls, paywalls rather, and I know if you were trying to publicize something, you probably wouldn't do that. But for example, if you're using Apple, my iPhone, and they come up with a story, and they'll go, "Oh, that's interesting," and click it, it's behind the Times paywall or Apple's paywall or something like that. It's just like drives you potty, Don't advertise something that you're then going to ask me to. If it's a link, it's a link. It's if it's a subscription, then say it's a subscription, But so
you're quite right, because so many trade magazines now have, at the very minimum, they'll have a registration wall. So you'll go into ISP review, and you might have to in your case you'll be registered in it, but many won't. So you're right.
I mean, I don't mind that. That's an exchange. In my view, that's an exchange. Someone's going to give you some interesting information, and they're asking for your contact details. I sort of understand that as an equitable exchange. So I don't mind that. I mean, it doesn't mean I'll then gauge, as you say, how much interest I've got in it, whether I do it, and what I think the follow-up's going to do. But I don't it doesn't it doesn't annoy me in principle, but I might not have time for it.
No, understood. And the other thing that a lot of companies use coverage for is obviously to promote themselves on other channels. So you can then do a short post on LinkedIn and on Twitter, etc., and then point people to that coverage with a nice image, which is automatically brought in normally from the magazine, etc. So it's quite a good, easy way of keeping your social channels well fed. So I still think there is a lot of value in media coverage, particularly specialist trade coverage for B2B tech firms, and I certainly spend a lot of time doing sector specific work, so where tech firms are looking to get into a particular market. So they want to be in the education trade because they're selling their solutions into that particular market. then obviously getting coverage gives that instant credibility,
Yes.
as well as a potential to be read by the right
Yeah,
people.
another thing that I'd highlight, because I've thought of it in relation to our discussions with you, and that is, to me, it's a lot more strategic. So, for example, I mean, say for example, I need revenue, then I'm going to probably go down a social route, or LinkedIn or something like that, to get an instant sort of, because I can judge that immediately. I
Yes.
can put up a webinar and go, how many people are going to attend? Well, I know if 50 people attend, I might get 10 buyers. I can do some maths around it.
Yes, the analytics are good,
Yeah,
aren't they?
that's right.
Yeah.
And then you get this instant response, and you can retune it, and you can do it many, many times, just changing it slightly each time. With the press and the media, I think you're in the strategic, because there's a time, you have to be careful about what you say. You have to plan it. You have to word it properly. People are going to pay more attention to it when it's written down than if it just flashes up on the screen. So I think you have to be less fussy about what you actually say. You just have to get your message across. So I think I see it as more as a strategic thing, simply because it takes some thought, it takes some planning. Then you've got all the timescales around producing stuff and getting it, the machine into the trade magazine or wherever. I'm not very familiar on how long typically that takes to do. I mean, something like ISP review, which is digital, presumably it's a bit shorter than a print publication. So
Yes, I mean,
I
it's
might be wrong,
almost,
but that's how I view it. I view
yeah.
it as more strategic, as in, we're in, what you said, we're in this marketplace. We need people to recognise we're there, as opposed to, I need to get some sales.
Yes, it's not that kind of instant sugar rush. It's the, we need to build this into our entire business plan.
Yes, yeah.
And it is one of the key channels to get our message out there, I suppose. Okay, so fine. So the next tiny bit of work I wanted to share with you in preparation for this was different people's approach to press releases and how they use them, because I think this is quite instructive on what change is taking place. So I looked at a mix of companies, and I must admit some of these are ex-clients, some are prospects, etc. And I found a real mixture of treatments. So we had, one company that I'm currently hoping to work with, who are a digital marketing specialist, actually a Google advertising specialist, in the automotive space. And they had quite literally no news, no press releases on their website whatsoever. They had quite active social channels, however. So what they'd clearly decided was a bit like what you were saying earlier, Larry. They were using social to keep their very specific audience up to speed. But they weren't trying to do more with it, and they weren't trying to, I suppose, keep the archive. They weren't trying to, tell their story through the library of press releases or articles or anything like that. So that was a different approach. And then I looked at number two others. So the latest press release from a supply chain transparency tech firm I'm talking to at the moment. So they hadn't actually published a press release since the 8th of November. Well, a company of their size, I would be thinking, well, possibly they ought to be doing more than one a quarter, which is what they're doing. They've got a news drop down, which is encouraging, but what they're actually doing is they're mixing news with features, which again, I see quite a lot now in the digital sphere. So you'll get a drop down, which might be, for example, the one below, news and insights. Some cases it might just be called insights as a drop down. But what they'll do, instead of having different types of content clearly tagged, they will mix it all up. So you won't know whether you won't instantly know whether you're clicking through to a press release or whether you're clicking through to coverage of that press release. or whether you're clicking through to coverage of an article. So it's almost as if, because the digital marketeers don't really see, they just see it broadly as content.
Yes.
And very often they're more interested in the backlinks than anything else. So they're sort of losing the definitions of different content, and that sort of intrigues me. And the next one, another one which used to be a client of mine in key management. I know they've got a fantastic archive of press releases because I wrote them. They're not carrying any of them.
No.
So what they've done is they've got a preeminent corporate brand, which in their case is Assa Abloy, and that's the one that's got the corporate press releases and stuff. But the sub brands are being demoted to the extent that the only content that was left was actually case study and video case study content. So that fascinates me as well, because I was then thinking, okay, so then there's a hierarchy here. So are you just saying that big corporate brands preserve all this content? In other words, have press release libraries and article libraries and really allow you to delve into their backstory, and everyone else is just doing the content which is about that quick sugar rush, or is about pushing people to the end of the sales funnel. That sort of interested me, and it seems that that's the case. So the really big companies, so I identified a top 5 management and IT consultant. I can tell you that was Deloitte Consulting, and they had a very traditional approach to it. So that although their drop down was a bit mercurial because it was who we are, within that who we are, they had a press room, and the press room literally had their press releases word for word, including contact details to the corporate comms people. So as you would have expected everyone to have, 10 years ago. So so the world's changed. So you've got the sort of digital savvy, digital marketing led people that don't really see a difference between different types of content. They're only seeing it for its worth, for its SEO worth and its potential engagement worth, I suppose. But that's interesting, because what that says is they're not specifically trying to serve the media with any part of their website, apart from Deloitte, actually. So Deloitte recognize that the media will be going to their website, and they will be going into the press room, and they'll be delving in the archive. Everyone else doesn't. It is questioning that. Well, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make a bit of a formal pitch here for press releases, because the reason why I strongly believe in press releases, despite the fact that we're in this sort of muddy digital marketing world where things are, content items getting mixed up, is it is a highly efficient method both of securing multiple bits of relevant coverage. And we've already discussed the merits of media coverage, but also it's frankly a good discipline from a communication perspective. One of the first things that I was taught about a press release is, in the first paragraph, you have to communicate the who, what, where, when, why, how. I didn't put the why in there. So you've got to get that in the first paragraph. Well, there aren't too many bits of content that demand that kind of detail. So if someone reads nothing about EasyPS, if they were to read that first paragraph, then they would know precisely what the company was doing, what it was talking about, why it was doing that, and then they could scan down to the bottom of the press release, and it would actually have a very tight description of what EasyPS does. So there are elements in that press release which are powerful from a comms sort of discipline perspective. And then, of course, because you're playing the media game by writing a press release, in other words, you're writing it in theory for their use. I mean, the reason why they're written in hierarchical order, in other words, most interesting stuff at the top and the least important at the bottom, is so that in the old days they would literally rip from the bottom, if it was a hard copy.
Yes.
And whatever, if they needed 100 words, they would just have your first 2 paragraphs. That would be it. So in essence, that press release model as a piece of content is ideal for the world we currently live in, which is short attention span, getting shorter by the minute, bite-sized chunks of information, ideally supported by video, etc., etc. So in a way, although everyone proclaimed the death of the press release, it's actually remarkably in tune with our times.
And as you said, it can be repurposed anyway. The content can be repurposed into any of the other things we've mentioned.
Absolutely. So if I'm doing a case study, I will make damn sure I'm also writing a customer win press release. So that's going to get 4 or 5 bits of coverage in the relevant media, but you've got possibly a link through to your video case study or your fuller case study, which is sitting on your website. So if people want to delve further, they can get that depth, while the media are also served because they've got that press release.
That's right. And there's nothing more powerful than seeing the same company mentioned in 2 different areas. I saw that press release, or heard something on the radio, and here they are online as well. It gives that omnipresent sort of feeling for people.
Yes, I think it's all about accessibility, isn't it? I mean, I've often looked at all those fantastic logos tech firms have of their customers.
Yes.
And they're often amazing names. I was looking at an automotive software business earlier today, and they had Bentley and JLR and Jaguar Land Rover and all those people there. And really what you want to do is you want to click on that logo and you want to go through to a suite of the press release of the latest project they won, the full video case study with them chatting to the CEO. You want it all, don't you? And when you can't do that, you just get a bit frustrated, and if anything, it then backfires because you think, well, why have they got these brands up there, but they haven't been able to do anything with them from a marketing content perspective? Which then you start to question, do they really have a good relationship with these people? So it's almost counterproductive if you don't go deeper with it. But anyway, press releases can obviously be adapted for LinkedIn and Twitter as well. You've got the potential for all those URLs from the coverage. And one approach that I thought of in terms of how to present things on a website would be to have those press releases, at least the last 5 or 6 or so, with the links through to the actual coverage, because you're not only saying this is a decent news story, but by the way, it's already been covered by 5 magazines that are in your space. So it gives it that instant credibility. They don't necessarily have to click through to see them because they're only going to have the same sort of information. But I think that's one approach, one sort of backlink approach as well. One approach we went for with one of our clients, they're actually a Microsoft specialist, interestingly, and what they did is they developed this business for I don't know what you call it, mass Windows deployment.
Yes.
Suddenly,
large scale,
large scale stuff. And they had a different approach, and it was interesting. And we developed with them an area which they didn't have before, which we called Insights.
Yes.
But within it, if you click to Insights, you were then led to these icons, which basically at least showed you the type of content. So
Mm.
if you really want to go detailed, you can look at
Mm.
the white papers.
Yeah.
You can go to more salesy brochures. You can look at our videos, and we developed one video which was a product led video, and another one which is much more a corporate story video.
Yes.
Or you can go to news, or you can click through to their social media channels.
I
And
mean, I
that,
like this approach
mm,
rather than having menus, because I think it harks back to what you were saying about just having discipline in what you do and you write. It's very easy on a menu-based system to hide 20 things there, but nobody's going to look at 20 things. So
no,
it makes you edit the content you're putting out and make it relevant by reducing it to 4 or 5 icons. I think apart from the fact it just looks more, it looks better and more modern. I think it talks about how well your company communicates as
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
You know,
It sort of says to me, we're pretty serious about everything we're doing,
yes, yeah,
including the content we're creating, and we recognise that people need different types of content.
yeah,
So we're honouring that, but we're also making it very clear to navigate as well. So
exactly. Yeah,
we're good at the digital side, which is really what they were saying as a tech firm as well.
yeah, no, I like it.
So that was my take on that. And then my next thought was, what types of stories do you think are worthy? So if we're going to do this division between social posts and sort of media worthy press releases, what types of do you make a division in your own mind of what's worthy of a LinkedIn post rather than a full-on press release to your media? Anyway, I was just going to talk through the different types of things that you might go straight to social post on
Yeah.
versus you might consider for a press release.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm thinking with the media hat on, to a certain extent with press releases. So there are a lot of inverted commas stories that I would regard as soft stories
Yeah.
from a media perspective. So all the ones on the right hand side of your screen, which are perfect for social, actually.
Yes.
So charity fundraisers, corporate celebrations or milestone achievements, new offices,
Mm.
a product enhancement of some kind, a progress announcement, just the fact that you've arrived at an exhibition or you're attending or you've got a booth at an exhibition.
Mm.
That sort of stuff is absolutely perfect for LinkedIn, Twitter, all those social channels. But I would say, as a rule, it's not worthy, or it's not tier A for a
Yeah.
press release,
Yeah. Agreed.
because you'll just find that the coverage will be thin to none,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really have the longevity that some of the stuff on the left has. So the stuff
Mm.
on the left really is stuff that you would like people to be able to see. If it comes on, you'd
Mm.
like it to be there on your website. It's definitely going to have legs in terms of the media. It's a much longer term play. So I mean, a lot of the work I do, as you know, obviously with you as well, Larry, is market research led.
Mm.
Well, press releases are perfect for unveiling key sets of results from market research
Mm.
exercises. They're also great for launching what I would regard as sort of premium content, which sits on your website. So in terms of getting engagement through, basically getting clicks and engagement on your website,
Mm.
weighty things like white papers, market research reports, etc., are a really valuable way of pulling people through. And you can possibly put, rules up there, so they have to leave their contact details in order to download this valuable content. And then there's some standard press releases which the media are likely to use. So anything to do with new customer wins tends to be of interest. Product announcements are a little bit more difficult unless they are related to a specific thing that's happening in the market. So if you're producing a product that's responding to, say, a brand new piece of regulation or something that's an opportunity that's opened up in the market, then I would say, yes, that's likely to get you coverage. If you're simply launching a new product and it doesn't appear to be hardwired into something that's happening in the market right now, then much more difficult to get coverage. Obviously if it's a strategic appointment, you've got a new chief executive, something like that, that's going to be relevant, definitely. And an award win, again, I think is worthy, because that's normally something that people pay attention to. And nearly all of these will also work on social. So that's the difference. This is press releases which should be sitting on your website, should be distributed to your key media, but also can be in short form, can be put up in social as well. But yes, it's really just about thinking about what types of content really get bang for buck and really support growth. And I would say that press releases, combined with social posts around those, need to be front and center. And that should be part of your growth, your comms plan to support your growth in 2023. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that is a sermon from the Mount, almost. And hopefully that was useful. And thank you very much for giving up your lunch hour to do it.